Hi, it's Dorothy Guinan with Scrapbooking, Quebec. In this video, I'm participating in Janet Fritz's monthly YouTube collaboration, Stretch the Sketch. In this series, we start with a 12 by 12 sketch and then we alter it. We either shrink it or we stretch it. Here's the sketch we're playing with in December. It's a Jen Hedger sketch from the Dusty Attic. My plan is to stretch it into a 6-photo double page spread. Below, you'll find links to all the other participants, so be sure to check out what they do with this month's sketch. You're about to see what I'm going to be using. I have the Mercy Tiara Kit Club's November 2023 release called Joy. This kit was made up of a few different Christmas collections, and I'm going to be digging into the Paige Evans Sugarplum Wishes portion. Everything I use, material and tools, will be listed in the description box below. Now, before jumping in, I want to talk about this sketch just to give you an idea what I'm thinking at this point. You can see there's a layered mat there. I plan to span it across the 2 pages, and this is a classic approach to stretching a single page sketch into a double page spread. Also, 4 photos. I'm going to drop that 2 by 2 photo you see on the right and bump the 3 remaining photos to the far right of that page. So that's going to be my left page. I'm going to stretch the layout to the right and add 3 more photos. And the 3 more photos are basically going to mirror what you see on the page that you see on the screen, short of the 2 by 2 photo, of course. I do plan at this point to leave my title where it is and have the journaling over on the right page, but I struggle when it comes to embellishing, so that gets switched up a bit. Anyway, let's jump right in and see what I do here. In advance, I prepared a frame style foundation page with 4 papers, and I'm showing you that I rounded the corners of that white cardstock on the outer edges, and that's a Creative Memories corner rounder. I also matted these 6 photos in white cardstock. So here are the papers. I know I'm using the white and the green as well as that floral paper. These other papers, I still have to make a decision, and I will do that a little bit later on in the process. I also have these foam stickers. Those are from the Sugarplum Wishes Collection, and they're a little bit dimensional. In this tray, I have a bunch of embellishing, and I'll talk all about that a bit later on when I embellish my page. So the first thing I'm going to do is start cutting up a bunch of paper. You can see the sketches in the top left-hand corner. There is a layered photo mat. So I'm cutting up a bunch of paper to create a layered photo mat that will span across the 2 pages. I will put measurements on the screen a little bit later on for all of these page parts, and keep in mind when I put measurements on the screen, it's always for visible page parts. And sometimes I cut mine bigger and then overlap. So watch when I actually adhere to the page. You will see when I overlap. So you can see I have the green and floral paper. Basically, that's a layered vertical mat. Now I'm placing my photos, and you can see that on the left-hand page, I'm more or less following this sketch, except I'm not using the 2 by 2 photo. For the placement of the photos on the right-hand page, I'm basically mirroring the position of the photo on the left-hand page. Only one photo is larger, and that's going to be my focal point photo. Now what you see me doing is auditioning different papers. If you look at the sketch, it looks like there is a big block behind that vertical mat. What I'm doing is selecting paper for that block, but basically all that's visible are narrow strips. So that's what you see me cutting down. As you can see, I decided to go with this red glittery paper. I cut myself 2 narrow strips, and then each one of them I cut in half. Now I'm going to place all of this on the page, and I mentioned earlier I put measurements for visible paper only. In my case, for this layout, the red sparkly paper I actually cut bigger, and when I adhere it to the page, you're going to see I tuck it underneath that green paper. All of the other pieces are real size that are listed on the screen. So you can see as well, I rounded the corners on that red glittery cardstock as well as on that floral paper. Now what you see me doing is adhering these page parts to the foundation page, and I'm starting with one side, then I will adhere the second side. And I do this on purpose because I do one side, in this case the left hand page, and I'm going to use this left hand page as a guide to place and adhere the parts on the right hand page. So that's why I start with one page. The only thing I'm really keeping in mind here is the red glittery piece that's at the top and at the bottom. I don't want them to be equal in size. It's going to be more narrow at the top than at the bottom. Also, that green strip is not centered. It's a little bit more towards the top of the page, but that floral paper is right in the middle of that green cardstock. So now I have all the pieces adhered on the left-hand page, and I'm using that as a guide to adhere my pieces on the right-hand page. So I didn't make you watch all of it. It's all adhered to my foundation page now, and I have all of my embellishing around me. I'm showing you that I did my journaling in advance on a piece of vellum. So basically I just did it on my computer and ran it through my printer. I do have to trim that down later on. I plan to use it as a layering piece. I'm also showing you I have two circular elements. These measure about 6 inches. And I used a scalloped circle punch from Creative Memories. If you're following along what I'm doing, that can be replaced with any circular element, a doily or just a circle. I will be using it as a foundation layer for my embellishment clusters. I'm also showing you in advance, I cut a bunch of bough branches, and I'm showing you the die set. It's called Beautiful Boughs from Stampin' Up. It's probably retired. I will list it below, but I often like to put leaves in outdoorsy, or in this case, it's not outdoorsy, but it works. I often like putting leaves in embellishment clusters to kind of round out my ephemera pieces, and I've been using those boughs quite a bit in the month of December. I showed you as well, I have some ephemera pieces selected. I also have those foam stickers handy. Those are self-adhesive brads from my stash, and I'm also showing you I have some title options here. So I have some titles from Vicki Boutin, I have some alphas from Paige Evans, and I also have a handful of ephemera pieces that may work as a title. So I haven't decided on that at this point. What I'm going to do right now is basically place my photos on the page and place my journaling and make a few decisions here. So you can see I've positioned my circular elements, one in the top left and one in the bottom right. That as well is another go-to approach for me when I take a single page sketch and stretch it into a double page layout. I often have an embellishment cluster in the top left and another in the bottom right. It just seems to work for me. And I will talk about the specifics to those a bit later on, because I do have a few kind of specifics that I follow when I use that approach. What you see me doing right now is trimming down my journaling, this vellum piece here. So I trimmed it down a bit. Now I am actually punching a border edge. So I'm using the Creative Memories Border Maker system, and I have the notebook border punch. I'm trimming it down. This ends up staying on my layout like this for a while, almost until the very end, but you are going to see I do switch it up at the very end. But what I'm doing here is trimming it down, and what I want for this vellum is I want it to serve as a layering piece. So if you look at the positioning of the journaling, which I positioned it towards the bottom of my printout, my photo, my focal point photo, is going to go just on top of that journaling. But I want there to be enough at the top so that it peeks out on top of that focal point photo as well. So when I was punching out my border edge and trimming, I was keeping that in mind, Basically, I want it to be a layer behind my focal point photo. So I trimmed it down again, and now what I'm going to do is place everything on the page. And you will see me fuss quite a bit here because of the positioning of the journaling. You can't really see the journaling on the screen, or I can't right now, but in person I can see it. But you can kind of see it's basically nestled between two photos there. So I am positioning the journaling so that it nestles between those photos. You also saw me tear the bottom edge of it. So I did that with the Creative Memories tearing tool. And now I am placing everything on the page. But probably the most determining factor here is the photo at the bottom left on this page there, because the end of that photo, the far right of that photo, is where my journaling is going to begin. That's why I'm really taking my time here. And once I know where to place that photo on the bottom left, then I know where to place my journaling. So I'm just really, really fussing here. But once I position all of this, then I move ahead and adhere it. I also want my focal point photo to land right on top of the journaling. So there's one thing I'm starting to realize at this point, and it starts causing me trouble, is that floral paper that I love so much is getting completely covered up with photos and my vellum, and you're going to see it definitely influences how I continue this page, because I absolutely love that paper and I am covering it up. I only have one sheet of it, which is why I used that green cardstock instead of that floral paper there, because I did not have enough of it. I guess I should have bought the paper add-on. Anyway, now you can see I've adhered my journaling. I've adhered two photos. Now I'm coming in with that circular element. I'm having it kind of go underneath that vellum piece. I will leave the focal point photo loose for the time being because I will be playing around with my embellishing a bit later on, and some of it's going to come out from underneath the photo. Now I'm adhering over there on the left hand page. So once again, I started with those two photos towards the middle of the page. I will adhere that circular element, but like on the other page, I am going to keep the bigger photo loose because that's where my embellishing is going to go. So I'm already starting to embellish. You can see I put two houses there in the bottom right, and I also have two tags in the top left. Now I am coming in with some of those boughs and just tucking them in and around. Now, when I use this approach by creating two embellishment clusters, or two main embellishment clusters in the top left and bottom right, what I do is I try to make sure they are different sizes. Typically on the bottom right, I have a bigger embellishment cluster than the top left. And if you look at how I'm building my embellishment cluster over there on the right, it almost hugs the corner. It goes all along the right-hand side and kind of underneath where the journaling is. The embellishment cluster on the left-hand page is quite significant, but it is smaller and it's more focused in one area. You can see I've got out my little mini die cutting machine because at this point, I've got a lot of decisions made for my embellishment clusters, but I don't know what I'm doing for my title. Now I have this ephemera piece that I cut up. I actually ruined it about a week ago. Then I used my dies on it, trying to recuperate it. It's from the ephemera pack from that Sugarplum Wishes Collection, and it says Holiday Happiness. It's kind of small for a title, and what I cut it out with about a week ago was a die set from Stampin' Up called So Sweetly Stitched, something like that. I will list it in the description box below. Well, in that same die set, there were layering pieces, so I cut myself out another one in that red glittery paper. And often when I use ephemera pieces as titles, I try to beef them up to make them more title worthy. So I thought by adding a layer that might help. I even thought of adding another ephemera piece, but it's at this point I'm realizing where I wanted to place my title, which is over there on the bottom left. If I place my title there, my floral paper is going to be almost completely covered up. So I definitely need to find another place for my title. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. So what I decide to do at this point, as you can see, is adhere my embellishment cluster. So over there on the right-hand page, I adhered my photo. I adhered my Boughs. That's what I'm doing right now. The adhesive I'm using for that, by the way, is called Sticky Specs. Basically, you lift a piece of wax paper, you put a detailed die cut on top of that yellow waxy paper. You'll see it a little bit later on. And when you do that, the adhesive picks up on the detailed die cut. It's kind of messy, but it works really, really well. I also adhered 2 houses down, and one of them I popped up on foam adhesive, and you're going to see I changed my mind on that a little bit later on, but at this point it stays there like that. Now, as you can see, I've moved over onto the left-hand page. So once again, I adhered my photo. I'm tucking in these tags here. Then I will come in with the Boughs using that very same sticky specs. Still don't know what I'm going to do about my title though, because again, I don't have much of that floral paper showing, and I wish I did. So I'm finishing off with the Boughs here, and what I did was I kind of cleaned off my desk, you can see, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do with my title. So at one point I'm thinking maybe I will put it up in the cluster in the top left. Problem with that is it's starting to make that cluster bigger, and I wanted to keep those 2 clusters, the one at the bottom right and top left, different in size. What you see me doing right now is beefing up again this ephemera piece for a title. So I took that foam sticker sheet, I found this pink poinsettia, I adhered it kind of overlapping that red glittery paper, and now with foam adhesive, I'm popping up that other die cut piece. Now I'm finding it much more title worthy now, but I still don't know where to put it. I kind of like it there in the top left, but again, it's starting to get a little bit big there. So at this point, I decide I want to put more of those poinsettia foam stickers around. And what you see me doing right now is removing the foam adhesive from that house, because the poinsettia sticker that I'm putting down is dimensional. And if I put it on top of another dimensional piece, it would have been too puffy, and it probably would have bent my poinsettia, and I didn't want that to happen. Anyway, no big deal. My house, my blue house, is now flat to the page, but I'm still kind of auditioning different stickers, putting them around, and honestly, I do not know what to do. And a big problem is, where am I going to put my title? So what I end up doing right now while I'm trying to decide, you can see me getting out these self-adhesive brads from a few past Simple Stories Christmas collections. I add a few to those tags in the top left, and I'm happy to be using up some of my stash, but I still don't know what to do with my title at this point. So you're going to see I do take a break, and I have to think about it, and I will come back, because seriously, I don't know where to put my title, and I'm really upset that I'm missing all of that floral paper. So I deconstructed a bit of stuff there. I'm showing you the title now. It looks a bit different. At this point, I had removed the pink poinsettia. I put the candy canes on the other side, and I'm planning on putting it in that cluster, the bigger cluster in the bottom right, and I'm happy with that. What I'm not liking was a tag that was up there. I've already removed it, but it was kind of a coral pink, and I replaced it with a pink And I like that better because it kind of matches the lettering in the title in the bottom right. I also put in another half circle with some red foiling, just another ephemera piece. So that cluster in the top left is a bit bigger now. And it also kind of matches the colors that are in the cluster in the bottom right. I do find another little ephemera piece that says Deck the Halls, and this is a story about decorating my tree. So I tuck that in, and what I'm going to do is just put this title on top of it as well. So it's already dimensional because I put the white with dimensional adhesive on top of it, and there's that candy cane foam adhesive piece as well. So that will get basically adhered flat to the page. Now you can see me putting a little banner over there in the top right page as well. So that stays. That says Merry Christmas. And what I ended up doing was adding a little gold, sorry, my tongue's a bit twisted here. I added a red glittery circle on top of it. I also added some foam alpha stickers, again, from the Sugarplum Wishes Collection. So over there on the far left, you see on top of a photo, I wrote the words, the team. And over there on the bottom right, I repeated that by simply adding 23 to indicate the year. I often do that when I create a diagonal design for a double page spread. If I have some form of a title in the top left, I try to repeat it in the bottom right. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, Scrapbooking Quebec, I would be thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. Don't forget to check out the other Stretch the Sketch participants. Their links are listed below. I wish you peace and happiness this December. Merry Christmas. I hope to see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.